ever get that feeling? You know, like you've instantly sized someone up, made a judgment call, and then that little voice in the back of your head goes, whoa, where'd that come from?
Yeah, we've all been there.
Turns out it's often our unconscious biases doing the heavy lifting, or maybe I should say sneaky lifting.
Definitely sneaky.
So today, we're going deep into that hidden world of snap judgments, those mental shortcuts our brains take. And we're going to figure out just how they form and, more importantly, the impact they have on us. Because, let's be real, none of us want to be controlled by autopilot, right?
Absolutely. It's like our brains are running outdated software, making decisions based on instinct instead of logic.
So basically, we think we're calling the shots, but really, we're stuck on autopilot more often than we realize.
Got it.
Okay, that's a little unnerving. But before we all spiral into an existential crisis, let's break this down. We want to understand how these biases develop in the first place. What are the real-world consequences? And, most importantly, can we actually do anything about them?
Totally. We can definitely unpack all of that. It all starts with understanding the long game, the way our brains evolved, unconscious bias. It's a story that begins millions of years ago with our ancestors. Just picture it.
Yeah.
A world where every single decision, every split second could mean life or death.
Survival of the fittest, right? Eat or be eaten.
Exactly. Back then, speed was everything. Accuracy, not so much.
Yeah.
So our brains, they developed these mental shortcuts, you guessed it, biases to help us survive in a world of saber-toothed tigers and, well, you get the picture.
So our brains are essentially saying, hold on, seen this before, know what to do. It's all about efficiency, making quick judgments, because who's got time to think when there's a woolly mammoth charging at you?
Right. And for the most part, that system, it worked.
Yeah.
But fast forward to today, and it's not always so simple anymore, is it?
Definitely not. So give us an example. What's a bias with those ancient evolutionary roots that might surprise people, something they wouldn't see coming?
All right, let's talk about the green beard effect. Now, stick with me on this. Imagine a world where having a green beard means you're way more likely to share, cooperate, be all buddy-buddy with others who also have green beards.
So even if I've never met this other green-bearded person before, I'm automatically more inclined to be like, hey, you seem trustworthy, let's team up.
Exactly. Sounds strange, I know, but it gets at something fundamental. Our deep-seated preference for anything and anyone that seems familiar, similar to us. Even if it's something as random as, well, beard color. Obviously, green beards, that's just a fun example. We don't need everyone running out for green hair dye.
Although, that'd be a sight. But okay, this favoritism for similarity, I'm guessing it goes beyond just looks, right? We're not just talking about beards and fashion choices here.
Well, absolutely not. This goes way deeper, influencing choices that are hardwired into us for survival. Like, say, choosing a mate. We're learning some fascinating things about HLA profiles.
HLA profiles. Refresh my memory.
Right, sorry. HLA, those are the genes that control our immune systems, our defenses against getting sick. And it turns out they play a bigger role in attraction than we thought.
Wait, you're saying we can literally sniff out a compatible immune system, someone who's a good genetic match?
You got it. And it often comes down to unconscious scent preferences. Crazy, right? But it makes sense. It's all about survival, making sure your offspring are as healthy and strong as possible.
So love at first sniff isn't just a cute saying after all. Our ancestors were onto something. It all boils down to that powerful, instinctive drive for self-preservation, doesn't it?
Exactly. And in a nutshell, our brains are wired to favor the familiar, the predictable. It's the path of least resistance, even now. But the thing is, to really challenge our assumptions, to override those deep-seated patterns, that takes conscious effort. And that's not always easy.
So even though we're no longer running from saber-toothed tigers, our brains are still kind of stuck on autopilot. But if we know that, can't we, I don't know, change the programming?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Hmm.
To figure that out, we need to think about how our brains process information. There's this psychologist, Daniel Kahneman, and he talks about two systems of thinking. System one, that's our fast, intuitive autopilot. It's where those biases really take over. But then there's system two, that's our slower, more deliberate thinking. Like actually taking the time to think things through.
So if we can tap into system 2 more often, maybe we can hit the override button on those unconscious biases.
Now that's what we need to figure out.
So our brains, they're kind of stuck in this efficiency mode, even if it means falling back on some seriously outdated biases. But how does this actually play out? Like in the real world, what do these biases look like in action?
Okay, imagine this. You're in a situation, high stakes, really got to bring your A game.
Right.
Say a job interview, you're trying to be fair, objective, the whole 9 yards. But your brain, It's getting bombarded with information, and it wants to streamline, take shortcuts.
So even when we're trying our best, those implicit biases, they can still sneak in and kind of, color our perceptions? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And it's not always pretty. Take, for example, what we call implicit association bias. Basically, research shows that our brains, without even asking permission, they link certain groups of people with specific careers, traits, you name it.
Okay, so real-world example.
Yeah.
We might automatically, without even realizing it, connect men with, say, leadership qualities more strongly than women, even if their resumes are practically identical.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what the research is pointing to. And it's not just about who gets the job either. This stuff, it seeps into everything. Healthcare, another perfect example. Studies have shown that, sadly, Black patients, they often receive less aggressive treatment than white patients for the same medical conditions.
Oh, that's really makes you think. And it really drives home the point that these biases, they're not just about individual perceptions. They can actually create these systemic inequalities, right?
Absolutely. And here's where it gets even trickier. Let's talk about confirmation bias.
Yeah.
We humans, we have this, talent for seeking out information that just backs up what we already believe, even if the evidence is telling a different story.
It's like when you're sure a movie's going to be terrible, so you go out of your way to only read the bad reviews, just looking for that confirmation, right?
Yeah, bingo. You're actively searching for proof, even if it's skewed, to support that pre-existing bias. And that's why this stuff is so important and so hard to combat. It means actively looking for different points of view, confronting information that makes us uncomfortable, and constantly questioning our own assumptions.
So we need to train our brains to, hit the pause button, interrupt that automatic response before it takes over.
Now you're getting it. And this is where knowledge becomes power. We might not be able to totally erase these biases, but understanding them, that lets us mitigate their impact.
Okay, so is it actually possible? Can we rewire our thinking, become more aware of these biases, and actually make better, more conscious choices?
The short answer is yes, but, gotta be honest, it takes effort. Remember System 1 and System 2. Engaging that System 2, the thinking part of our brains, that's key here.
So how do we do that? How do we give that thinking part of our brains a boost and start making more deliberate choices?
Well, good news is there are strategies that have been proven to work. It's about forming new mental habits.
Okay, give us the inside scoop. Actionable insights our listeners can start using right away to tackle those unconscious biases. What's first?
All right, one powerful tool, mindfulness meditation. Research actually shows that meditating regularly, it strengthens the prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
That's the part of our brain in charge of decision-making, impulse control.
So like hitting the gym, but for our brains. Building up those mental muscles, resisting those knee-jerk reactions. Love it. What else have we got? Mindfulness, got it. Quiet the mind, strengthen that prefrontal cortex, and we're basically bias-busting ninjas. Okay, what else can we add to our arsenal?
Well, think of it this way. Those biases, they love to hide in the dark, right? So if we really want to tackle them head on, we got to shine a light on them.
Okay, love a good metaphor. How do we actually do that? How do we illuminate those hidden biases?
One of the most powerful ways is to seek out, really actively look for diverse perspectives. It's like, those snow globes. Give it a good shake. When you're constantly exposing yourself to different cultures, viewpoints, ways of life, all those ingrained biases, those preconceived notions, they start to lose their grip a little.
So travel, books, movies, even just striking up conversations with people who've had different experiences than us, it's all about expanding those horizons, shaking up those assumptions.
Exactly. And here's another one, simple, but it works. Slow down. When we rush into decisions, we're way more likely to fall back on those automatic responses, those biases.
It's like that feeling when you fire off an angry email and then instantly regret it. We got to give System 2, the thinking part of our brains, time to catch up.
You got it. Give yourself a moment to actually pause, to reflect, to really think things through. That can make a world of difference.
This has been eye-opening for sure. But gotta be honest, hearing that we can't just magically erase these biases, it's a bit disheartening. So is it always going to be this uphill battle?
I get that. It can be a little deflating. It's true. Our brains, they're hardwired for these shortcuts. But here's the thing. We're not prisoners of our own biology. Even small changes, just being aware and adjusting our behavior a little, it can make a real difference. It's not about being perfect. It's about progress. Yeah.
Progress, not perfection. Love that. So for our listeners, now that we've really dug into this whole unconscious bias thing, what's the first step they can take? What can they do today?
Awareness is huge. Just acknowledging that these biases are real and we all have them, that's key. It's not about blaming or shaming anyone. It's about honest self-reflection. And there's this great tool, the implicit association test. You can find it online. It's really interesting.
So it's like holding up a mirror to our subconscious, seeing those hidden patterns we might not even realize are there.
Exactly. Once you're aware, you can start making more conscious choices. Remember, this whole rewiring our thinking thing, it's a journey, not a destination. We're always learning, always growing, and trying to be more mindful, equitable, just better humans.
Absolutely. And on that note, I think that's the perfect place to wrap up our deep dive into the fascinating and sometimes a little frustrating world of unconscious bias. Our brains, they're incredible, capable of amazing things, but they can also lead us down some twisty paths, right? But the good news is we have a choice. We can let those unconscious biases call the shots, or we can choose to be more present, more aware, more in control of our thoughts and actions.
And that's a choice worth making every single time.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the inner workings of our minds. Until next time, keep those brains engaged and never stop questioning.